We are here because we are dedicated to helping the entire CrossFit community. Determined to elevate coaches, box owners, athletes, and everything in between, we believe that this mission will begin right here, right now. While this time and this goal begins with you, our hope is that you take this fire ignited within you and weave it into your own life with the same unrelenting passion to give those you have the privilege of coming in contact with the best hour of their day.
We save the best guest for the middle for our evening with series, depending on where you are on how you're looking. You might want to put on gallery view so you can see everyone, but BHOTD is best hour of their day, aka Jason Ackerman, our esteemed guest for the evening. So for those who were here last week, you kind of got the drill. For those who this is their first time, welcome. I'll kick it off and I'll get the conversation rolling. Don't let this go to your head, Jay, but he is a very interesting fella. There's lots that we can talk about in everything CrossFit, nutrition, CrossFit Games, coaching.
Wait, be clear about that.
CrossFit Games judge. Living New York to Florida to Colorado and everything in between. So Jay, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And then folks, if you guys again have any questions, you can either put raise hand, you can pop them in the chat, come off mute. It's want to have this open and interactive. So Jay, we could use the term OG for you. You're currently in outside of Boulder, right? But tell the folks where you got started in CrossFit and when, because I feel like that really sets the tone for the conversation moving forward.
Where was upstate New York? Are you guys on the East Coast or West Coast of Canada?
We're north of Toronto, hour north of Toronto.
Okay. So that's actually, I did my first level 1 in Toronto, at CrossFit Toronto. So upstate New York, like you had mentioned, and so I understand the weather that you guys are probably dealing with right now. And 2007 is when I opened my first affiliate. So I found CrossFit in 2006. And at the time, you couldn't just go to a local affiliate. You couldn't just learn from someone. You learned by looking at the website. You learned from going to CrossFit.com. And I don't know if any of you have done your level 1, but currently, or maybe prior to the pandemic that's happening, they were having a dozen every weekend all over the world. And at the time, there was one some weekends, and Toronto was the closest one to me. And I made the trek up to Toronto in 2007. And then opened my affiliate in the fall of that year.
Now, when you say opened your affiliate, I'm sure most folks here are imagining, a space similar to what ours looks like. A big open box, lots of pull-up rigs, rings hanging everywhere, assault bikes, rowers. Tell the folks how you got started and paint the picture for what CrossFit truly was like in 2007 and how spoiled we are now.
Okay, I'll give a little bit of a backstory. So I graduated college in 2000 in upstate New York, a state school in New York called University at Albany. And I did not want to get a real job. All my friends left school and it was like the boom. They were making all this money and I was a personal trainer. I was making like $8 an hour, but I was like, I'm at Gold's Gym. I work at Gold's Gym. This is great. And I was getting ready to leave the fitness world in 2006. I got a master's in educational psychology. I was like, okay, this is enough. I'm, living in the basement of some apartment. I can't, a really, really fancy date night with Subway. Like I'd be like, honey, we're going to Subway. You can get anything you want. Like that was like
not extra cheese though.
Yeah, that was a big deal. And I was ready to leave. Like I said, I just finished my master's. I was going to be a teacher or something. And I found CrossFit, and I was a personal trainer at this time at a gym called the Court Club, which is it was like a Nautilus room with the most outdated Nautilus equipment. If you remember your Globo gym, there'd always be like one piece of equipment that had a rip in it, like the leg. Every piece of equipment had multiple rips in it. It was the most outdated stuff. But I was a trainer in there, and there were 18 racquetball courts, and at least in the States, racquetball is not growing. Racquetball is a dying sport. Teenage boys and girls do not grow up and ask their parents for racquetballs and rackets. Although it's a fun sport. So I had a client that was a real estate agent, and I remember asking, I said, Barry, I found this CrossFit thing. I want to open one. And he was like, no. He was like, no, you can't open one. He's like, but what you can do is ask the owner of this building if you can rent one of those courts. And I said, that's a smart idea. So I approached the owner. I said, I found this new thing, CrossFit. You've seen me doing it in the Nautilus room. Can I rent just one court? And he agreed to that. A handshake deal. We didn't have a long-term rental agreement, but have you guys seen a racquetball court? All cement walls, like dark. There's no windows. So a handful of the courts have windows, but the one he let me rent was like the one where I'm 5'3", and I'd like duck in the door. So you can imagine taking the old school squat stands, before there were rigs. There's like these Christian's Fitness Factory on eBay for like $120. You buy these cheap squat stands, and you have to like Tetris them into the room. So yeah, that's where I started. 800 square feet with no flooring. We destroyed the floor there, and a rig that I wouldn't call it a rig. I'm not a handy person, and we had like pipe coming out of the wall, and it would fall out of the wall as people were getting onto the pull-up space. So it's not the fancy CrossFit affiliate you guys are accustomed to, where it wasn't.
Yeah, and I mean, there wasn't Rogue then, right? You don't just go onto Rogue and go into the Zeus builder and build your dream gym and they just ship it to you. You had to hand make almost any. What was your favorite piece of equipment that you had to make?
Well, we went through everything. Slam balls were, like I said, I'm not handy. So luckily I had friends that were, but I don't think I've told this story often. So we wanted to do muscle ups, and with Rogue, I'm not sure exactly what you have, but they call them trawlers. So the rings come off of those, or just high enough spots on the rig. And because we were in a racquetball court, there's 20 foot ceilings, so we couldn't go to there, and it was a drop ceiling, so we couldn't use it. So I hired on like Craigslist a welder to make me basically a really tall standalone pull-up.
Almost like a swing set in a way.
But it was individual. There's videos of it, I'm sure, on YouTube, because I remember it's where I was doing my muscle up. So, but anyway, he welds me this thing. I totally forgot. And then, like I was telling you, he brings it, and I was like, we can't fit that into like, how are we going to get that in? So we didn't. And then he actually had to take it back, cut it, and build like this thing so it can, you took part of it off and put it back in. So right. I've told this story numerous times. It's become a joke, but I was Rogue Fitness's, I think, second or third order ever.
That's cool. And then now, I mean, so, being fortunate enough to coach or teach at the level 1 and level 2s every weekend, pre-COVID. Now you get to see gyms of all different shapes, sizes, kind of. How much are gyms different, but then how much are they the same?
They're very different. There are shiny CrossFit affiliates out there, with the newest of technology, and everything stays. I mean, part of it, not only were we getting handmade pieces of equipment, but we also kept it very dirty. I had multiple dogs coming in and out, chalk everywhere. We were the last racquetball court down the hallway. So if the door opened, leaves would blow in, on a fall day in Albany. But I think there's still some old school ones. And I think the ones that do it best have that nice blend of, yes, this is very fancy equipment, but we still keep it old school. And I think the old school may not be what you see, but is more so the vibe that you get when you walk in, the friendliness, the community, the whiteboard, the high fives, so you can have a shiny box that doesn't have any of that, but you can also have a grungy box that is the best at that.
The kind of intangibles. So then, as we go on this little journey, I feel like what was that show? This Is Your Life.
Yeah, my old coaches aren't going to pop on here, are they?
No, yeah. But same thing, you have a connection with the CrossFit Games and being a judge at those multiple times, and we'll get to talk about that. But also, basically, starting regionals in the East? Is that what you've claimed and hung your hat on?
Well, the first games was in 2007, and there was no other competition. So one of the original members, her name was Susie, like a 60-year-old woman who just, got so involved in the box because it changed her life, was like, let's run one of these competitions. So I think around May 2008, we ran the first ever competition in the parking lot that wasn't the CrossFit Games. And we basically mimicked the CrossFit Games. We hired out a 5K group that came in, they marked it, the local park and we opened it up to a lot of people because we wanted to recoup our money, for that. So we had the 5K, we had a CrossFit Total where I brought in a local powerlifting gym to do all of the judge. If you Google Albany CrossFit and all of this stuff, it'll come up somewhere on YouTube. And then lastly so the original CrossFit Games had a hopper event. So the event that they've used multiple times now, the original variation was a 1K row and then 20 pull-ups and 7 jerks at 135. So they repeated that a few years ago. They called it 2007. And then I think this year they did a harder version of it, if I'm right.
On what, day 2, I think.
Yeah. So we didn't have outdoor pull-up space. So I had to come up with a workout that was basically all barbell. So I think we did a 1K row and then 5 rounds of like sumo deadlift, high pull, burpees, and thrusters. And it was a 20-minute cap and 0 people finished it under the 20-minute cap. So I did not program that well, but it was, we were limited with what we could do. And let me think. So there was a couple names that went on to be, relatively successful. Tanya Wagner, who won the games a couple years later, she competed there.
Right.
Heather Bergeron. She wasn't Bergeron at the time, but Ben's wife, and quite a few other people that had a pretty good competitive go. Hey, someone you guys may know, being Canadian, OPT was signed up to do it, but he pulled out with some sort of injury. But he was signed up originally.
We were talking like OG people, OG Canadians with Paul Tremblay last week. But yeah, for those who don't know, OPT was he was the original winner in 2007, I believe, out of Calgary.
He won it,
yeah. James Fitzgerald, an absolute legend, and I think he went on to start OPEX, or is that his brother Mike did that? But
I think they're both involved. One of my favorite videos, I think I posted in our coaches group not too long ago, is OPT doing Helen, mostly because I like the music.
Yeah, he did. So this guy, and then remember, this is again like very bootstrap stuff, and so Mike Fitzgerald did Helen in just over 7 minutes, and for most folks that would take the running part. It would just take us that long to finish the running.
Well, it's 3 400-meter runs.
Yeah.
So that would be at least 6 minutes of my 7 minutes.
So then, because remember in this time, CrossFit was started in Santa Cruz, as far left on the map as you can get. And you guys started this wave on the right coast. And it's kind of cool, like, to think about how full circle things have come now. We're going back to online, back to message boards, sharing our scores on either SugarWOD, Facebook, or something. But, you know, for those, before we move on, talk about what CrossFit was. It was a message board, and like Chris Spieler was just this legend that you saw every now and then.
Yeah, there was a old school forum. I don't know if you can even still find it, but back then, and it was pre-social media. I mean, maybe I had a MySpace. I don't know, but you know, it was pre-Facebook where there were groups or you would see people. And my very first coach, I met on the coach, as in someone that worked for my box. I met on the forum, and he lived, you know, in a town called Clifton Park, which was like 20 minutes away. And he came, you know, I should say I kind of transitioned from training to boot camp classes where I started bringing in CrossFit methodology, but didn't have all of the equipment. And he started coming to that because it was the only thing in the area that he can get that had other people doing the same thing. But yeah, you would talk about that. I remember at my level 1 in Toronto that I took, there had been this competition between a guy named John Gilson, who opened Again Faster, and then another Canadian. His name was Anthony Bainbridge. Haven't heard of him in a while, but he was like the guy, huge jack dude from Canada. And I think he was on the west side of Canada, and they were having like this virtual competition, and then the loser had to wear a dress at the level 1. They were both working there. So John Gilson had to do a workout in a dress, but it was all through the forum. You know, you would just meet people. That's where you would, you know, how did you make that slam ball? How did you know, what did you use for your pull-up bar? And it was great at the time. A guy named Jerry Hill, who went on to be a pretty good masters athlete. You know, I remember him just randomly reaching out to me because his sister lived in New York. So he was like, hey, you know, here's some things that I did when he opened his affiliate. I think it was CrossFit Old Town.
That's cool. And then you get into that, you get interwoven into the CrossFit HQ world. And then eventually at what point, what was the first year you got to judge at the games?
So I didn't judge at the games for a few years because, as we were saying, I ran that competition, and then Dave Castro reached out and said, hey, we're going to do this kind of sectional thing. And because I had experience, we want you to run the Northeast. So for a handful of years, that was my focus. And then I would go to the games and help out from more of a logistical behind the scenes area. And then once they got rid of regionals, they still gave me the opportunity to participate at the games, but in a judging format. So I think I did 1 or 2 years in California, and then all of however many years I've been in 2 years in Madison now. So maybe 4 or 5 years of judging.
Do you have a favorite event that you've judged?
I can tell you events I don't like judging. I didn't like judging. The rope climb snatch one from 2 years ago, I think, where they had everybody. I judged the guy that won in India. What's that?
First cut, yeah.
The first cut, yeah. I judged the fittest in India. So he comes back from the 400. He does one legless rope climb, comes down, immediately goes into his second legless rope climb. I was like, this guy's either really fit or this is a big mistake. And he goes for the third one, and he just spent the next like 19 minutes yelling at his forearms. But the reason it was unenjoyable is because we're on that turf and we had to take a knee, and it was the most uncomfortable position to sit in. You know, everybody, I'm watching my buddies like get up, go judge the snatch, come back. And I'm just sitting there kneeling, watching this dude stare at a rope. So that was not so enjoyable. And then another one that I did not enjoy. Remember the bike, what they call it, the crit?
Yeah, the criterium when everyone got hurt.
That's why it was easy to judge. But me and I think I was partnered with a guy named Drake from Germany. We were at this spot where people just kept wiping out. And it was like really hard to even watch the people come towards you because you were just like, which one's going to wipe out? And that one, I think Bethany went, like she was just road rashed. And it was like cringy. because you just like didn't want to look at it. So that was another one I did not enjoy. Oh, and then lastly, an enjoyable one. I'll give you an enjoyable one. I don't remember what year, but they called it, like, not the Vitruvian Man, I want to say, but they called it one of the number. It was like the
Oh, yeah. It wasn't the triangle where everything was triangular numbers. It wasn't that one.
Yeah, it was something like that, but it had like a weird name to it.
Yeah.
And
Say what was in it, I might remember.
it was deficit handstand push-ups, kettlebell deadlifts, and then an overhead lunge to finish.
Oh, it was the finals workout, right? It was
yeah.
Okay.
Fibonacci
final. There we go.
Yeah. So the first year they did that, the finals, I was judging Cara beside Tia with my buddy Greg, who was judging Tia. And if you watch the beginning of the movie that they made that year, it's the four of us, before even the name of the movie comes on, because it came down to like the final handful of steps. It was that close of a race between the females. And it was just people think judging it's stressful. And I like to sit in the back of a lot of things and just have fun and not be in the forefront. And you're not supposed to judge the same person twice throughout the games. As you should avoid it as best you can. So we're getting ready for the final heat, and I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the competition aspect of CrossFit, period. But even at the games, I'm like not really paying attention. I'm just do my heat, get out. It's my time to socialize, see my friends. So I forget who I had, and I was like, "Hey, I've had this person. Can somebody switch?" And Joe DeGain from Michigan, he's like, "Here." And I was like, "Cara, cool. How's she doing?" "Oh, she's like in second place, like in the middle." I was like, "No." And it came down to like the last step. Tia got no rep, but I think Cara won, but Tia won the overall event, and it's deafening. It is so loud being there.
So for folks who don't know the event we're talking about, it was it finished with double kettlebell overhead walking lunges, and it's essentially a foot race, and it gets down to like you can reach the finish line, and Tia breaks and comes down
barely. Yeah.
There was a moment. Greg was at my level 1 way back when, but there was a moment where they kind of locked eyes, and he's like, "No rep," and I can only imagine at that point you couldn't hear or think or do anything.
You're just staring, watching, and you're hoping that they do well, because you don't want to no rep. I don't even want to have to think about it. Just lunge. Just keep those things overhead and lunge.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll shift gears a little and start. There's a few other things I want to get to. And again, folks, if you guys have questions, by all means, pop them in. CrossFit Games, it's probably from an outsider perspective pretty fun, or seems kind of easy, but it can be long days, right? But you are also surrounded by a bunch of people that fitness is important. So what are some strategies you've done to stay at least focused on your fitness during those kind of long days when you feel like there are 1,000 reasons to not work out on those days?
Well, it's funny because I think the CrossFit Games, from a judging perspective, it's like an experiment. So I'm always like, okay, here's what they're going to do. They're going to sleep deprive you. They're going to not allow you to fitness. And then they're going to feed you as many peanut M&Ms as you can eat and just see what happens. So like a behind the scenes peek is everybody has a meltdown. Everyone melts down. So my goal is like, I don't want to use any names during this, so I got to be careful about that. So I always have like 1 or 2 buddies that we go into this, and we're like, let's not be the one that has a meltdown, which we've never been successfully. And we're like, let's hold each other accountable. So we always find the time. We always work out, typically ahead of time, regardless of the wake up call. And if not, certainly you get those breaks and you take a break there. And then one thing that I do during those days is intermittent fast. Because then it's very black and white. Like I can't eat those. Once all of you are probably aware. Once you take a handful of M&Ms, you're done.
Yeah,
you're done.
Like
so, yeah, you just have to not do it. And You just fast all day or till your day ends, and then you eat a healthy dinner. But the key is if you get your workout in, even if you're tired, you're gonna feel better throughout the day. And then I don't know if any of you have done fasting, but it's not as hard as people may think it is, and you feel better than if you eat that, because these are people that typically wouldn't eat all of this sugar, so they're just spiking income. And you guys know when you're tired, you're like, I'm tired, and you go to eat more.
You want something that makes you feel good too. It's like a peanut M&M will make me feel really dang good for about 2 minutes.
Yeah, and then as the week or weekend wears on, you can just see it's like people it's like people are breaking. They start to just lose it mentally. And Boz, who runs us in the back, he's in charge. You could see his patience starting to wane as the weekend goes on. And I'm always like, there's nothing that will happen that will require me to ask a question. So you always see, hey, Boz will finish talking, and like 8 hands will go up. I'm like, he's either said it or you don't need to know it.
It's funny, like, what is the saying? Our needs differ by degree and not by kind. Is CrossFit just one big scaled up thing? Is Boz just essentially doing one big whiteboard brief, and then there's the one guy not paying attention? And
it's I don't think it's ever, these are all highly trained, trainers, coaches. I don't think it's that they're not paying attention. I think when you're typically the box owner or a type A person, you think you need to know everything that's involved. Like it'll be like, hey, we're doing this workout, and somebody will be like, where's the chalk bucket gonna be? Like, you don't need to know that. You need to know what a good rep is and what, and it's always amusing to watch that, because I was like, if I don't know it going out there, like I'll figure it out. But it's interesting to watch people's minds. But like I said, I think it's just because it's all a big experiment. A couple of years ago, we went to the ranch. So literally the meeting ends at 10. They're like, wake up call at 2. That's like on Wednesday, and we have 6 more days of judging. I'm like, and then not to mention we got held up at the airport. We couldn't get back. So I was like, I think Dave does conduct these little like, hey, I was in the SEALs. You guys can handle this.
Yeah, it's all about making people uncomfortable. And that's a good, I asked Paul this, and I want to ask you is, what's something about Dave Castro that might surprise people?
That he really cares about people. So another game story. There was his handstand. It was old on the tennis stadium. It was before I was judging. It was helping out with the logistics. It was a handstand push-up. I think it might have been the peg, but there might have been a pegboard. So anyway, I was in charge of getting all of the equipment onto the floor. And originally, they wanted these like flip, like when you play like high school soccer, they'll flip a thing and it'll give you the score.
Oh, yeah.
Like you scored a goal.
Like in volleyball and that.
Yeah, wrestling, like that's how they would do the points. So they didn't make it onto the floor for whatever reason. I don't remember. And it was my fault. So he's standing, we're like in front of the front row, standing there watching the event. And he's yelling at me, like really chewing me out. And I'm like, all right. And one thing I've learned about Dave, it's like, you don't question it. You don't talk back. Like, he's stressed. Okay, they'll get out there. So the second heat, I have my team, like 8 of them come out, however many we needed. And then he's watching it, and you could just see he's like shaking his head because it's such a cluster. They were doing handstand push-ups. There was those ballistic blocks. That's how they were doing the deficit. And he looks at me, he's like, Ackerman, get those things off the floor. I was like, okay. And I ran out, and I was like, we got to get those off this heat. And then the next day, this was the end of the CrossFit Games. The next day, I woke up and I had an email, and he was like, thanks for handling that so well. And I was like, I got yelled at. I didn't even remember, but he remembered that. So he comes off kind of, potentially arrogant or, it's a, somewhat of a persona, but at the end of the day, he cares.
And the guy knows how to program fitness, knows a thing or two.
Yeah, maybe not whether or not there should be a, score flipper on the floor, but it's just, it's one of those things. It's like class. Like you said, it's like one big macro. Sometimes you program something, you're like, this is going to work well. And you don't realize, there's too many boxes and bars. And until you actually see it live, you don't know any better. But that was definitely something I've learned from him over the years. Like when you have someone telling you what to do, just do it. And I've seen people question him, and he's like, "Go, you are no longer needed."
Yeah, and like all things, right? The reason why the CrossFit Games has been a success and grown so quickly is because of how he runs it, and it needs to have that military-like precision because there's no time for emotion. It's just get it done, and we'll worry about it later. It's kind of that same battle mentality.
Exactly.
So we're coming up on time, and I want to shift gears completely because I think this will interest a lot of folks. So you have a nutrition coaching business, Own Your Eating. Heather, who's on the call, she's 3/4 of the way through, or did she finish? She hopefully finish soon. The Own Your Eating certificate. So we can start getting into nutrition, but I want to because you've been working with the carnivore diet for quite a bit now. And for those who don't know, maybe just give a little brief overview of what it is and maybe some of the benefits you've noticed from it.
Well, it's really simple. If it's meat, you can eat it. If it's not, you can't. So it's simple in execution. So January is World Carnivore Month. And I learned that last year. So 2020, I heard about it. I listened to Joe Rogan podcasts and a few other, Mark Bell, a few other people, this guy, Dr. Paul Saladino, who wrote a book on carnivore. And from January of last year, it was on my mind. And it was, sitting right in this exact spot in the kitchen. And I was having bacon and eggs in July. And I was talking to my wife. And I said, I'm going to do that one day. Like, let's get through the food in the house. Like the typical, like we got peanut butter. I can't start this until the peanut butter's gone. And she looked at me. She's like, stop making excuses and just start. I was like, damn it. She's right. Like the peanut butter's not going to go bad. And I said, I'll do 7 days. And then I posted it as most people, I'm doing something insignificant. So I'm going to post about it on social media. And anybody that had done it was like 7 days is not enough. You have to give it 30. You have to give it 90. I was like, well, let me see how I feel. And 7 days in, like they said, no change. 30 days in, started to feel a little bit different. I mean, I had we moved to this area, joined the box, and then now that I coach at, and the first few weeks was like torture. I hadn't been doing CrossFit as much because we were going through it was closed. Right. So I was doing like everyone else, working out in my extra bedroom or more Peloton than anything. And so it was like, not only have I not been doing this, now I'm doing this and trying to rely on a different fuel source. And everyone that said that to me was absolutely right. It took about 90 days and I felt, and still continue to, it's almost, 7 months later, never deviated. I feel amazing. I love it.
Now, this is where you as a nutrition coach would probably, this happens all the time. Someone hears Jay Ackerman felt amazing on the carnivore. I'm going to go tomorrow morning and I'm going to start carnivore. But it's like it depends in the sense that it's the best diet is the one that works for you and that you can stay consistent with it. How have you been able to stay consistent in it? And then what have you seen throughout the years in terms of just people maybe getting caught by those fads and how you can kind of just find a North Star and stay with it?
Yes, I think there's a few questions. Let me try to answer most of them. I tend to live black and white. I definitely don't have an addictive personality, but I like when things are black and white. And I also like when things are somewhat challenging that a normal, ordinary person would not want to do it. So I think that was part of it. Like I grew up wrestling and I like that mentality, so obviously I have my food issues because growing up wrestling, I don't know if any of you wrestled, but your high school earth science teacher basically gives you an eating disorder and then sends you out to fight, your peers. No, Roz is pregnant. She's not doing the carnivore diet. So is that, I think that, like I said, it's simple. I like that. You know, I love macros, you know, too, Heather. And the simple part of that to me was always, hey, hit your numbers. It's black and white. So it's like I did or I didn't. And I like this where it's like, is it like, I imagine a flow chart. Like, is it meat? Yes, eat it. No, don't eat it. And I can live that way. I mean, Roz, she's 8 and change months pregnant. She has crumble cookies. I don't know if you guys have crumble cookies in the or in the in Canada, but they're basically the most delicious things. I was doing them every weekend for my cheat night, you know, and so do I want them? Yes, but it's nice to have that black and white. And we had Nicole Coyne on the coaches group earlier today, and we were talking about it. And I was saying, you know, one of the things I learned is how much my body was allergic to certain foods, cheese specifically. And I'm afraid at this point, what would happen if I ate something like that? Like, not like I'm going to die, but I'm either going to like get a rash or just my stomach would feel terrible. So at this point, it's become pretty easy because I'm just like, I don't want to risk what that would feel like. But, you know, it took about 30 to 45 days at the box. And then all of a sudden, amazing. Like, I feel like I have energy for days. I feel great. My body's not sore. I'm sleeping better than ever. So those are, I mean, and I have no, I do not make any money if you decide to do the carnivore diet, but I just really enjoy it. And I think it's one of those diets too, where same with macros. I think any diet you can eat a normal life or live a normal life. People like to think, well, what about when real life happens? Like, you can track your macros, or you can, you know, not be an idiot when you go to a party. And, you know, same with carnivore. We've obviously not eaten out often, but when I have, I think twice in the last, you know, year, I've had chicken wings. So yeah. I like that aspect of it.
Well, and you know, I think you touched on two main things there was.
And yes, Heather, I still track.
Yeah, how many days in a row have you tracked for on MyFitnessPal?
Like, too many to break the streak. Really, I track, but I don't need to. Like, that's another thing I love about it. You know, that I don't ever feel like I need to be tracking. I do it more so out of habit. But again, it's helped me kind of understand, am I hungry, or do I just want to snack? You know, it turns out you don't just snack when there's only chicken in the house. You know, or only chicken that you can eat, but you would grab cookies. So it's opened my eyes to that. I feel a little less stress in that. But like Matt said, I think there's a lot more to be. I think before somebody did that, they should have an idea of macros and how much food they're eating on a regular basis, and how their body handles, you know, protein, carbs, and fats.
Well, and I think you hit on two kind of really big things. One was that, like, you just kept repeating about how good it made you feel. You sleep well, you feel good, you know, and then there's just that, there's what's the saying you guys coined for own your eating is don't eat like an asshole. Like, you know, that's a pretty simple statement that carries with it a lot of weight. And then just realizing there's so many foods that we feel like we need to have because it's nice. Like, I got to have my cheese every day, but not realizing that you might actually have some sort of insensitivity, or it's causing you more grief than you think.
Oh, you know, and I started it, and I think I had some cheese, and then probably closer to 3 months ago, it's in the cabin over here, she brought home these like Parm crisps do you guys have Costco?
Yes.
And so she brought on these Parm crisps, and I overdid it, and my stomach, like, I thought I had COVID because I was like, I'm so sick, something's wrong with me, you know. But it was just my stomach was that messed up. And, you know, Roz, who's taking a really big credential course right now, you know, and smarter than me about nutrition, she's like, it was the cheese, dummy. Like, and I was like, yeah, you're probably right. So I cut out cheese. Within a day, my stomach felt better. And then here's something else, you know, I'll give you a TMI thing. So I have a beard, right? And it would be like when I would brush it, like dandruff would be coming. It was gross. Like dandruff would come out of it. And I would shave because I needed to put like lotion on my face. And since cutting out cheese, I've had no issues. So you don't realize, it's like a drug. You're like, okay, just a little bit, but you don't realize what that impact is. And I was like, not to downplay, like my stomach was so messed up. I remember one workout, like I had to stop because I was like, I was in pain, and like I'd be laying on the couch, and from the day I stopped, and we still have those crisps over there, and there's some cheddar cheese in there, but I have no desire to have any.
Well, and again,
you have to be willing to test it. And, I work with a lot of clients, both in the box and nutrition. And I think, so no dairy, Carolyn, 0. I wasn't really having, that was the other thing. We got some raw milk from like a local, what do they call those things when like a whole bunch of stands come together? It was farmer's market. Yeah. So they gave us this raw milk, and that was another one. I tried that, and like behind my ears got all dry. And I used to get it in Florida, and I was like, it must be the humidity, but then I still had it here. So it's like, I don't want to be flaky. Like it was embarrassing. Like I have flakes coming out of my beard. So, we work with a lot of clients, and we talk about values, and health is my number one value, meaning nothing else really matters if I don't take care of myself from a health perspective, exercise, eat right, and other things, rest, recover, vitamin D, go for a walk. And so many people will claim health is one of their top values, if not the top, but then eat foods that clearly don't align with that. So by doing those values on an annual basis, I just did it, of course, at the beginning of this year, as everyone does. And it was just a reminder, how can I claim that health is my number one value when I'm eating cookies? Not that cookies are always bad for you, but I'm talking people that, eat in abundance, or just nonstop, eating foods that aren't in alignment with health.
Well, we just finished up the Lazy Macros Challenge for the month of December, and it was a real eye opener for a lot of folks. Not necessarily about what maybe the stuff they're eating, but even the biggest thing was the stuff they're not eating, when realizing how much protein you actually need. And you need that every day. It's not like, oh, just on Wednesdays, I got to hit my protein goals. It's like, nope, got to redo it again the next day and the next day. And you can leave stuff on the table if you don't.
Yeah. And 90% of the people, when we first talk to them about nutrition, they're not eating enough protein. That's either they're not eating enough protein, and they're often not eating enough, except for the weekends when they eat plenty. So many people are, the weekend warriors of nutrition, in reverse. They do well 5 days a week, and then on the weekends they go off the rails. But, I want to make clear, it's okay if health isn't your number one priority, or number 2, or even number 5. Just don't pretend like it is. And I've had that conversation with people. I'm like, maybe health just isn't that important to you, and that's okay. Like, if you're going to eat like this, just be honest with me and yourself. Like, hey, the freedom in your life to eat whatever you want is more important. That's cool. But let's stop pretending. So, that's why, I think, to answer your question, it's like, this works for me because it's never a question, and by doing those values, it's like, I love what I do and working with coaches, but given the choice to do work or work out, it's going to be workout. Not always, but at some point you have to go to work. But it makes it easier to say, okay, which should I pick? Health. Which should I pick? Family, or whatever your values are.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a great opportunity to cap it. I think no one realized how fast that time flew. Folks may not realize Jay is in Boulder, Colorado, so he's 2 hours behind. It's dinner time, and he's got a pregnant wife who is probably needing some dinner time. So
it's the dogs more than anything. I don't know if you can hear them. They're whining. One of the dogs is on carnivore. He eats raw food.
Does he?
Yeah, a little Rocky.
There you go. Yeah. Was he a Boston Terrier or Bull Terrier? I always mix them
French
up.
Bulldog.
French Bulldog. That one. I was in there somewhere. Well, Jay, thank you so much for doing this. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone to say thank you, and what a blast this was. We truly appreciate your time. If you guys want to say thank you or anything, or pop in the chat, you can. And thanks, Jay, and everyone, get your rest, and we're back at it tomorrow.
Right? Before you stop recording, I have one thing. So I think, thanks, Crystal. I think it's important too for you guys to realize, there's 15,000 CrossFit affiliates out there, and most of you have probably never been to a second one. I don't even know how you say it. Is it Orillia?
Yeah, Orillia.
What is that? Is that Canadian for something?
It might be. I thought Katie was leaning into China. I don't know the etymology behind Orillia. If there's a Simcoe, it's on Lake Simcoe. There's a lot of native heritage in the area. So,
well, anyway, if you guys have never been to another affiliate, and I think this is something most boxes and the members of the box don't realize is, not everyone cares as much as the owner of your box. That's Matt. You only go to your box and you're like, every box is like this. That's not true. There's just like anything else you guys do in life. There's a good Chipotle, and then there's the one that, gives you that small scoop of beef or chicken, whatever you're eating. So, it's important, I think, that you guys realize, Matt's a level 3 coach, or is it still trainer actually at level 3?
Yeah,
still trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's, I think what's the percentage? Maybe less than 1% of all CrossFit trainers ever attain that. So, he didn't need to. You guys were probably, I'm sure your membership didn't go up because Matt attained his level 3, but hey, maybe that's a good idea, Matt. Maybe once the doors open again. But it's important for you guys to know, and Matt's always been a part of every group that I've offered for coaches development. Now he helps out quite a bit in the group. So, I think it's important that you just don't know. It's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. And I'm sure you guys are a pain in his butt quite often, and he, handles it with a smile on his face, even though he wants to be like, this guy or girl is driving. They're texting me. It's 5 a.m. Yes, I'll have a scaling option for you when you show up. Don't worry. So just, I think it's always important for the box owners that are doing it right, doing it well, for their community to realize it. Because it's fortunate, because I'm sure not only CrossFit isn't what changed your life. It's CrossFit Orillia and Matt that's probably changed your life. CrossFit is free. You guys could be doing it, in the park. That's how it started. But it's something about you walking into the doors of CrossFit Orillia and Matt making you feel welcome in the community that he's created. That's what's probably changed your life.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. I truly appreciate it. Nice.
And John, what's John? What do you got? A sepia filter on your Zoom over there? It's like,
black and white.
How do you do that? Black light? What are they? Did you say black light? Are they in college?
Black and white. Yeah.
They got a lava lamp too.
This is in 1972.
Just an old computer, man. And by the way, thanks for giving us permission to text Matt at 5 a.m.
Yes,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm up ahead. It's 9 p.m. that I'm like, bedtime, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know I'm on. I'm just going to say that we know that we are very lucky because he sort of transcends the gym. Like, there's been lots of stuff going on where he's been involved with communicating with the government to even help non-CrossFit gyms. So we're very aware of that, and yeah, certainly lucky. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, hey, you're welcome. You guys get to see me every day. We should be thanking Jay.
Thanks,
We've been online since March.
Yeah.
I've been in the gym once.
True. Yeah.
This is very cliche Canada. You got a hockey poster in your living room.
All right, folks. Have a good night, everyone.
So you never miss an episode of the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel and on all major podcasting platforms at Best Hour of Their Day. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being a part of the best hour of our day. See you next time.